Here we are again, Jason. You are the happiness you seek. Have you figured this out yet?
Yeah, I think so.
So you understand now that the happiness that you are striving for is just you. It's just within you. You're not distracted anymore. It's all good.
Well, that's a different question. So the first question was, do you understand it? Do you got it?
So conceptually, you understand the premise of the book.
Conceptually, I understand it, and I have been practicing it and actively, and will continue to practice until my conditioned body is conditioned in a different direction. But parts are, it's coming along. I am ever increasing my awareness about the fundamental fact that my happiness cannot be obtained from outside sources, let's say.
Yeah, I actually noted that. We'll get to that. Something that you've invited me to consider during our coaching is something I wrote down today, which we will cover when we get there. But we're going on to chapter 13 today. We're making some progress here. We finally made it through chapter 12. Chapter 13 is called Our Innate Happiness. And what do you think about this quote at the top? I definitely started it.
Yeah, so why don't you read it, because you're the one who always loves these fucking or does not like these quotes.
I'm so opinionated with these quotes, yeah. So this one is by Lao Tzu, and the quote goes, "Thus the master travels all day without leaving home. However splendid the views, she stays serenely in herself."
Yeah.
So we don't leave ourselves. There's no separate home. It's just what we witness.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, Rupert does have this statement that I really have enjoyed. It's captured my attention from day one, which is basically, he was challenging people around the idea of stand up and walk towards yourself. So I just love that. I just think it's
I do like that a lot.
Yeah, it's like a velvet sledgehammer. It kind of is potentially a wake-up call to say exactly what we're talking about.
A velvet sledgehammer. I like that as well. I've never heard that.
Yeah.
All right, so we're getting into the chapter. Is there anything that you'd like to start off with as we begin this one?
No, I mean nothing. The bottom of this first page caught my attention.
Okay.
But other than that, I don't have really any opinionated opinions on where we start and launch into this bad boy.
Okay, yeah. So I was referring to the quote or the invitation that you've offered me before in one of our coaching sessions, and the question that you've asked me is, when are you going to stop outsourcing your happiness, Tyler? And it's always just a really confronting question for me. And I happen to have it written down on this first page of chapter 13 because of something within the text that I don't recall. But I'm just going to briefly skim over it real quick.
Yeah.
And yeah, so he pretty much draws a connection with these examples of things that bring us happiness, at least what we typically believe to bring us happiness. As a child, you receive a toy and you get happy. In high school, you find your first love and you become happy, blah, blah, blah. It's all of these things that we experience going through our lives, but the flavor and the essence of the experience remains the same. It's not like the experience of happiness actually changes. It's not like, oh, well, this feels a little different than this happiness that I experienced before. The experience of happiness is the same, and it's all these different things in the content of our experience, objects that bring us this sensation of happiness. So I appreciate that display there that he did in this first page.
To piggyback on that, what I appreciate what you're saying, and to add to it is, or what delineates it, makes it clear for me, is you can have 10 people that are given presents, and not all 10 are going to associate the present with pleasure, right? Because there's, at the end of the day, the association is the principle here. They're associating through an interpretation of what each present they get and what it means for them and through their individualized filters. And that's why I think it really compounds this point that if my filters and my biases associate this kind of gift as pleasurable or not as pleasurable, or I don't like it at all, along that whole continuum, to me, it's really self-evident by pondering that it's an inside job, that we're having an interpretation and something that the present represents within ourselves that triggers that either favorable, partially favorable, or a partially unfavorable response or reaction to the the offering of a present. So it just reminds me that, yeah, at the end of the day, certain things in a patterned way can offer pleasure or displeasure, but it's our belief and our filters and interpretations that make it so. Is another way maybe to consider that.
Yeah, and getting a little bit further into the chapter, we could probably talk about those intermediary layers of what creates those preferences, right? But we'll get there.
Yeah.
That was a nice little segue. Okay, so I'm moving along to page 100. That's the next page if you don't have anything else on the first.
No, I'm good.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I pretty much alluded to the flavors paragraph there near the top. So I just want to, he offers a nice little differentiation, actually not differentiation, but comparison to suffering and happiness in the middle chapter. I'm going to read that. It says, if happiness were really caused by an object, substance, activity, circumstance, or relationship, then as long as one of these were present, happiness would be experienced, right? So we could always have the same experience of happiness if these things always remain. But he says, conversely, the same must be true of suffering. If the same object, situation, or person can make us happy one day and miserable the next, then none of these can itself be a cause of suffering. So what he's saying is that, at least what I'm interpreting that he's saying is like, the same object is creating a different experience. What is the same between the experiences? It's us. It's our experience of it. So it's just flashing the mirror there to be like, okay, you're not experiencing happiness, you're experiencing suffering. Look in to see why. What are those things that you think you need? And how are we going to let go of them?
Yeah, and to share my experience of what, when I was reading this and it's coming up again, is like relationships. He uses relationships as one example.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, right, so many times through different phases of our relationships with others, whether it's a friend or a partner or whomever, when we attribute and pedestalize them to say, oh, they're the wind beneath my wings, or they make me whole, that's to me a good signal to say, you're just interpreting those experiences in this moment as I'm incomplete and I am complete with them doing these behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
And he's really getting at is that tomorrow, the next day, when they don't do those exact same behaviors in that same exact pattern, it has a strong potential possibility of you interpreting this new pattern or slightly different pattern through the lens of through which you become miserable. So, the same object,
yeah,
both causes can be projected upon to create blessings and pleasure as well as misery. So I think that in and of itself, hopefully over time, and you can apply that to anything, a new shiny toy, etc. So I think he's just trying to belabor and smother people with the idea that at the end of the day, your happiness is or not begins and ends with what's going on in your mind and your heart.
Interestingly, the person, in my opinion, the person can do the same exact thing that made you happy at the beginning forever. And even that same action will reduce over time in the gradient of happiness it brings you, right? Because
Yeah,
at the beginning, let's say, I was going to throw out a really inappropriate example, but whatever, your partner buys you a piece of jewelry within the first 2 weeks of you dating, it means a lot more because this person hardly knows you, right? And then you're married for 20 years and your husband or wife buys you a piece of jewelry. Oh, great. Like, that's really nice because I've been with you for so long. It's almost expected and not appreciated as much because the time has been there. The person is the same. The gesture is the same. You are the same. It's just time that's gone by. And therefore your appreciation, your happiness is reduced through this, everything being constant. Why is that?
Why is that?
I think I asked you first.
Well, you can say, like, don't go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, I don't want to get too far ahead in the chapter, but he talks about how receiving that thing temporarily eliminates the seeking and resisting, right, of the ego. And when you become used to a gesture, it's almost like the ego is prepared for it in some ways. Like, no, you tried to get happy that way before, and now it doesn't work. Let's try this other way.
Yeah, it reminds me, someone mentioned something about how dopamine wants just more dopamine, right? So, I mean, in and of itself. So it just seems like it's a perpetual seeking and never satisfied. It has a temporary feel or fix, but never has that long lasting satiation of heart and mind, right? So that also comes to my mind when we're talking about, and in part that's, call it what it is. I think novelty and new things,
sure.
We create a lot of stories about novelty and new things. So
yeah, my 7's pretty high, so I get that.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, and he just moves on to offer different examples about how, like you said, like you could offer the same exact gift to 10 people and it's not going to mean the same thing. It's not going to bring the same level of happiness to each individual. So I don't think we need to hammer that point anymore. You want to move on to page 101 a little bit?
Yeah, please.
A little bit. Yeah, so as he goes through page 101 halfway through, I noted, again, what I had kind of previously alluded to, that the acquisition of something is just a brief invitation into the present moment. And it's that invitation to the present moment as a result of the stopping, seeking, and resisting that actually brings us the happiness. It's not the object, it's that present moment where all of a sudden we're not looking anymore for anything else.
Yeah,
and there's a certain confusion there. Like, we're all confused in that it's the object, it's the thing, but it's the moment.
Yeah. It is the moment. Now I lost my thought here. I'm sure it'll come back. But yeah, it sounds good. I can't remember what the fuck I was gonna say.
It is Sunday. Sunday fun day.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have drank so much beer before this.
Yeah. I think I was going to share is that really, if we use our 5 senses to identify causation or correlation, that's where we get into trouble. And we're so our 5 senses are so lit up into help us navigate life in part, but it also in part we get seduced by the illusion of what our senses might be indicating to us versus reality. And so we just make attributions to certain relationships that I want to say, for a lack of terms, get us into trouble or get us down a path of an interpreting what causes what or what is correlated with what in an incomplete and even outright inaccurate conclusions. So it's almost like in part we're going against the fabric and the essence of our five senses, like that there's somehow a mechanism that needs to go beyond the five senses to understand life. And then when we re-engage or reevaluate life beyond the five senses, or acknowledging the limitations of the five senses, I think for me, at least for me, something turns on that wasn't turned on prior to. I mean, I think about even, we've talked about some of our mutual plant medicine journeys together. I mean, I think that's some of the power of plant medicine.
Oh yeah, that's so funny. When I was rereading this morning, I was thinking about that again. I was like asking myself, sorry to interrupt you, but is the power of the plant medicine really just because they bring us into the present moment and they eliminate time? Is that so much of what it is? I mean, I know I've had those kinds of experiences.
Right.
Something to me, and obviously it's a lot of things, but
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the pleasure or displeasure is a phenomena that happens within our experiencing of ourselves through interpretation, and then we just, I don't know, maybe I'm just rambling at this point, but then we project that onto an object and therefore conclude that object caused this. I mean, like what he's getting at in this moment reminds me of where most people are at, in my opinionated opinion, which is, you made me feel X. The devil made me do it. All of that kind of stuff. I think, we are just intrinsically driven to that kind of approach to life, which reflects, our education, our cultural conditioning, our teaching, our inherited, collective unconscious, personal unconscious ideas that have been inherited. And, we have to, I would propose, we have to challenge that paradigm and consider, think, feel, and experience beyond that paradox.
Yeah. So in lies a great challenge.
Yeah.
Or not. So just moving along down that page, one line that I thought was super important, smacked me across the face, said, in the absence of seeking and resisting, that is, in the absence of any impulse to escape the now, we find ourselves at one with our current experience and align with the flow of the universe. So with this line, it kind of invited me to consider, like, why in the world we want to escape the now. Like, what does this desire to escape this now come from? We might have briefly touched upon this before, but do you have any idea of like where this drive and desire comes from to escape the present moment?
My theory would be is fear, the sense of lack, the sense of separation, the idea that I'm going to die, or the five senses are indicating some kind of threat or what have you. So I think there's those mechanisms are in place. I mean, are deeply embedded in the human avatar, whatever you want to call this body, and our physiology and our psychology. So to be present for me when I think about, like, I always appreciate, go back to, plant medicine is easy example for me is, if you don't resist the medicine, your whole nervous system is lit up like a Christmas tree, right? Rockefeller Center. And to the degree that you're feeling either overwhelmed, lack of control, disoriented, which is the complete opposite of what our mind and body has been conditioned to do, which is categorize, patterning, pattern recognition, stay safe, looking for threats, where am I most vulnerable, so I can fight or flight. And that's why I think it's quite a bit of a challenge at times. Basically, you're swimming upstream from your psychology and physiology to consider concepts like this, right? So I don't know. In summary, maybe it's a byproduct of a lack of control, fear, shame, kind of like the ideas of our core beliefs of separation, and that's
Yeah.
felt in the body. And if I am separate from you, then and then that gets blown out the gate, if you're not ready or prepared, it's like, well, then who the hell am I? And then we get into, many people, including myself, deal with at different times in their lives the existential crisis question: who the hell am I? And that's nerve-wracking for a lot of people. Like, what is my purpose and mission? I thought it was this. Is it really that? What does it mean to be a human being? What the fuck is this globe doing? What is this all about? You ask some of the bigger questions of life, and I think first thing that I think about is it's overwhelming, it's scary. I don't know. No clue. Fundamentally, I have no clue. And so those are, at least in this moment, my best shot at your question. What do you think or feel?
Yeah, I mean, what came up for me in your sharing of that is just really it's the denial of now, based on old stories of what the now can bring us or what the now does not bring us. Like you said, lack, like if I don't have or appreciate exactly what I have now, what I am now, what there is now, then I'm always going to be looking forward. If I'm always worried or fearful of what happened to me in the past, in the present now, then I will then project that fear onto the future, hence anxiety, right? Or depression or whatever. Can you hear her laughing?
Yeah, I
Jesus
did hear her
Christ.
laughing.
Yo, Ash, control yourself. I'm recording here. Close the door. This joy is unacceptable. So yeah, I think that pretty much rounds out my opinion on that. Did that land with you? Did you hear what I said?
I heard what you said, home slice.
Cool, thanks. Thanks, Boo Boo. Moving on down towards the end of page 101. Yeah, he just offers another example about how Rupert gave his son a pair of soccer gloves, and his son was like elated and didn't say, I'm super happy about these new gloves. He said, do you remember? I'm super excited about getting new things. I love getting new things. It's the newness, right? The novelty of the things that we acquire that think we're getting happy, right? Dude, I'm so fucking guilty of this. I love buying shit. Love it. Totally conditioned into my system. A path that I chose for some sort of karmic purpose. And I still sucked into that at times.
At times?
At times, yeah.
Yeah, at times. Okay. I just wanted to clarify, at times.
Did you think I misspoke, or were you just being sassy, you fuck?
That's up to you to decide.
No, I mean, I judge myself for this all the time.
But not enough, apparently.
Not enough to make a change. No.
Yeah, obviously.
Honestly, in all honesty, there's this line of clothing coming out tonight that I actually have an alarm on my phone for. I'm like, the anticipation of getting it is like there, that desire, that seeking.
It's going to be like having an orgasm. Once you're done, then you're going to go back to sleep.
I'm not a sleeper after orgasm, actually, typically. I'm so like, I actually have trouble sleeping after orgasm because I'm so stimulated. But topic. We're not talking about that here.
Okay.
But if you want to know more about conscious cocking, write in the comments below. All right, so
Hey, just real
102.
quick, I just wanted to say on page
Oh, Mitch.
101, what I appreciated, which is I think nicely summarized before we go on to the next page, is just that the happiness has not been caused by anything outside of ourself. It is simply the natural condition of ourself, which is really a paradigm from how I would perceive most people have appreciate that. So let me say that again. It is simply the natural condition of ourself, which previously was obscured by the activity of seeking and resisting and is now revealed. So I just think that that is interesting. And to validate that, I would just invite people to do all kinds of fun exercises of, you can do meditation, you can do yoga, you can do plant medicine, you can do all kinds of different things in regards to disrobing, so to speak, metaphorically, those seeking and resisting patterns, and then sit in that space when you've cultivated that, or you've disrobed, metaphorically, so to speak,
Yeah.
and see how you experience the self.
Simple invitation. At the top of 102, he just says, and how do we escape the present moment and venture into the future? What is the mechanism of what we're talking about here? And that is your thought. If you're thinking about the future, thinking about possibilities, thinking about this happening, that happening, or worry about this or that, that's that thought that projects us into the future. Just, what you're saying is whatever tool that you can use to notice yourself going into seeking and resisting, seeking the future, resisting with the present, acknowledge that, play with that, whatever mechanism, tool.
Yeah, I mean, in practical purposes, is become the witness of the thoughts, become the witness of the sensations, rather than going down the merging pathway there to merge with them and then you act out and etc. So unmerge with your historical patterns through observation and just let them do their inherently natural thing, which is to come and go, and then see what comes up, or see how that experience in this more observatory, neutral space feels like. So, yeah.
Cool. So I don't have anything at the top of 102. Do you?
No, sir.
Okay. So into that next section called seeking and resisting, which we've already been alluding to quite a bit. It actually even confused me. And anytime something confuses me, I know that there's something to dig into here. And he talks about the intermediary layers of the feelings that are triggered that create the seeking and resisting within us. Do you have any thoughts or perspectives on what this means? It's confusing to me. That's why I'm asking.
Well, I haven't read it, and I haven't read. Let me just, if you ask me, I'm not prepared to answer that, because this one section. I made notes and I asked her. Thanks, Tyler.
While everybody's waiting for Jason, look at my assistant here. That is my pussy licking herself. Yep, there she is. See that, Jay? Pussy
yes.
licking herself. Cool.
Okay, so I mean, I would suspect that the intermediate layer is the body.
Intermediary layer.
Yeah, is the body, which is houses feelings and emotions. That to me is the intermediary layer. So, because above it says this layer of individual preferences lies between the background of awareness, which is beyond the mind and the body, and the foreground of objects and people, and constitutes a filter through which our experience is mediated.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
It's this, then that's essentially subconscious. Because if it's the layer, in our subconscious is stored in our body, right? It's this
Yeah.
this interpretive layer of what our experience is, but also lies above awareness, lies above unconscious, then is the subconscious. And what you said in regards to it being our feelings, there's a story there that changes the lens in which we have this intermediary layer.
Yes.
Cool. Okay, I understand now. Couldn't just use different term.
Just for you. I mean, God damn it, Rupert, why didn't you
I
use
know.
subconscious for Tyler?
I know. I'm really
Bastard.
selfish, actually. I'm reading a book right now called No More Mr. Nice Guy. Man, I am no more Mr. Nice Guy for sure.
Okay.
Don't fuck with me, dude. We'll interpret that book next if we ever finish this one.
Yes.
So you want to move on to page 103?
Sure.
So I just have one special word listed, and it happens to be written on your arm.
Equanimity.
The term equanimity. Do you know what what paragraph I noted that next to?
No, my friend.
It's a second full paragraph down, where it says, in the absence of preferences in the activity of seeking and resisting they generate, we are one with our current experience. As a result, our innate happiness is felt. And I really love you for this, because I can think of so many times where you've been asked a question either by me or somebody else, and you're like, I'm good either way. Whatever's good. You're so level that way. You truly, in my experience of you, mostly don't have preferences that I've seen. Pretty cool either way. There's can you speak to the difference between equanimity and aloofness?
I think of aloofness as being like legitimately a form of disassociation and disconnection.
That's exactly the word I was going to use too.
Apathy, and I think of apathy, indifference, all those adjectives. I mean, equanimity is fully present, soundness of mind and heart, has a clear anchoring rudder in the midst of life. So regardless of whether it's windy, cloudy, a shitstorm, or there's no wind at all, equanimity is a grounding, a soundness in one's essence. So
I love that. And to me, I understand, but when we talk about not having preferences, there's a big difference there. It's not numb or like whatever, I don't care, like do what you want. It's not that. It's present to what can be, and also not having attachment to either side of an option. Your focus is experiencing what is meant to be, what is happening, so on. Cool, man. I'm actually going to get a tattoo. Aside from the one that I invited you to consider last week, I'll get that one without you still. But I'm going to go the Jator route and get in a Nietzsche somewhere on my arm.
Interesting.
I mean,
what does that mean for you?
I mean, it's equanimity. It's the practice of vipassana, the witnessing, the being of preferencelessness. Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, thank you for your judgment. All right. As we go on down that page, anything stand out to you?
No, I think 104, we're good.
Okay.
I don't have anything else.
Yeah, so do you like that paragraph at the top of 104? Did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I just made a note. I said it was beautiful. Well said. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of what we've been talking about. It's just a Zen cone.
Yeah.
which we probably don't need to read. Buy the book, read it. All right, and then going on to page 104, the section called unconditional openness. I do like this. I've not seen those terms together before.
Yeah, so, I think the first two sentences, is the paradox, or is a real challenge for the way we've historically seen our human behavior and psychology. In my opinionated opinion, it says happiness is always present within us, latent, but obscured by the resistance to the current situation. This resistance is, in turn, activated on behalf of the subliminal layer of the conditioned likes and dislikes. Now, that's in part, I think this is a little bit of a bitch to process and deal with on some level. If I were to ultimately say is, you never not have serenity, you never not have equanimity. It's always present. It is the conditioning, our personalities, our beliefs, our historical patterns of perceiving and experiencing that filter that reality so that that which is real is perceived as not real. And I think it's pretty cool and fascinating to consider that. It throws it all on the head. So basically, we've had these conversations where, this is if you go to a very simple practical example of self-improvement, if you fundamentally have these qualities or characters as part of your true essence, your true reality, then there's nothing to improve. Fundamentally, our nature, our etc. It is when we develop this thing called a personality, whether we want to get into nature versus nurture, fine, I don't really care. But when we take on these energetic signatures of beliefs and ideas and concepts and ride them fully out through the lens of likes and dislikes, that causes such a distortion of seeing the glass or seeing the mirror clearly, that this idea that we are inherently not separate, that we inherently have no agitation, and that we have inherently no lack, seems laughable, a gross miscarriage of justice. And I just find it such a fascinating journey to A, consider it, and B, experience it, at least enough to know that the taste of it feels real. And I don't know, it's just so powerful to consider that.
So, there's a part of me that's stuck in this, dual, non-dual perspective on our healing, right? He's talking about here in these subliminal layers about our conditioning, right? This conditioning comes from our experience of our life up until now. Some believe, in utero to 7, whatever, or 1 to 5. People talk about, and you've discussed the shock of realization of separation, what happens then, whatever. There are experiences in our past that have created the way that we see, that created the preferences that we have now. Right now, what value do you place on looking backwards versus just looking and seeing what you are right now?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. So for me, I spend a lot less time looking back as if I'm looking back in time. And I try to do more asking of myself of what am I feeling now? Even if it's, let's put it this way, through normal language, let's just say something happened at the age of 8. And from that time, it altered my protective and defense mechanisms about relationships. And that pattern has shown up and I'm in a lot of pain. That's the genesis. And I'm in a lot of pain about a current relationship, right? I think there's maybe something to be said to say, what are you experiencing and when did it originate? And to help me see how I'm perpetuating this patterning in my physiology. My body is continually bringing to the surface in the moment this old belief structure that is part of what we were just reading about. It's part of my conditioned likes and dislikes, and it's part of my way in which I resist being present.
Yep.
So I'd like to think of it as, let's deal with the past through the lens of it being real and right now, not let's like disconnect from the now in my language and my approach and go back so far removed that you're not doing it in the present moment. Like, allow the experiences to come, be present that it's coming and occurring in the present. These patterned responses. And then you can do, in my opinion, then it's about unmerging with that, knowing why you might perceive that you did what you did. And then asking yourself really objective questions like, is that literally the same situation that I'm dealing with in this moment? And I have yet to really find honestly where, okay, my struggles with my current partner, and I age regress to the symbolism of an 8-year-old kid. I'm hard pressed to ever come up with myself or working with somebody to say that is apples to apples. I've never found it to be so. We're just projecting, the symbolism about a current situation through the lens of an age regressed, metaphorically 8-year-old belief and idea.
Yeah.
So I mean, if we ask ourselves some really, I think, interesting questions about it, it starts to crumble. So I think there's benefit in asking it through maybe sometimes that perspective. At least that's where I'm at. Rather than, I would say, is dwelling, in the past, where there just seems like I'm on a therapy couch for 20 years talking about the same old shit. I don't know how much that serves. It serves people to a point to when they're ultimately sick and tired of talking about the same thing for 20 years, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah.
So that's how I would give it a shot. How about you? Or what did you hear?
Yeah, I love it. The thing that stood out to me the most is how you offered that even though the thing that you're addressing did occur in the past, you're approaching it as if it is happening to some extent right now, because it really is. We can only experience things right now. It's happening right now through a physiological expression of what it reminds us about the past, right? So I like how you offered that, to just be aware that it's still happening right now. And right now, as I'm experiencing it, if I'm aware of it, just being aware of it, witnessing it, is going to, slowly unmerge you to that. And then also whatever other emergent practices that you have, is slowly going to build that muscle of like, this isn't happening right now. It's not from this past. It's not this 8-year-old boy who, is living right now. It's me. This is me, Jason, right now. And I don't need that, or whatever technique that you use for that. I know that you've offered some interesting practices about whatever the sensation is that is arising right now. Can you place that sensation outside of yourself on this thing and witness it? Can you bring it back? And that's a nice little tool. So hit up Jason for that tool if you want to be coached through something like that. Worked for me. I still have that rock.
Nice, dog.
Yeah, I do. Actually, ever since then, I've collected a rock from every meaningful place for me on the journey.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyways. So through 104, let's see if I have anything that I'd like to talk about here.
I really wanted to share this while you're searching that out, Tyler. I think this is really cool. A sane person is one who does not wait for their circumstances to align with their preconceived ideas of how they, quote, should be. That's my quote, air quotes.
Yeah.
Their happiness is prior to and independent of the connection of experience.
Content.
Content of experience, thank you. They do not allow experience to determine their happiness. They bring their happiness to experience in the form of unconditional openness to whatever it is they are experiencing. And it reminds me of our conversation that we've had. I know in my past relationships where when I had expectations that they needed to do X, Y, and Z, that felt good. And when they didn't, I felt like shit, right? And so I was always outsourcing my happiness. And it reminds me of that one yoga meditation that he has that I've shared with you a long time ago, or a bit now, that when we go inward to find our own happiness, then we can share and act from that space that my cup is full and I share it with the outside world. I'm sharing my love, I'm sharing my desires, I'm sharing whatever it is that I like to do through the lens of sharing it in an introspective way, in an interdependence manner, rather than going into relationships and being codependent and looking for love, looking for those things in a relationship. So to me, one is outsourcing it, one is insourcing it, one is I have it and I'm sharing it within a partnership, because then I'm not dependent upon the partnership showing up in a specific way to, quote, give me happiness.
Yeah.
I think is just has been mind and heart altering. And Zaina and I talk about this all the time, that when things are going great, as well as when we have our non-great opportunities there, I always say is at the end of the day, I don't need you, but I do want you in my life.
Yeah.
And we remind each other of that often, especially the pleasure, because that can be really seducing.
Totally. Yeah.
So
your body being in need of that or whatever. I made a reel of that. I don't need you, I want you. Highest amount of views I've ever gotten.
Got it.
So there's some magic there for sure. And what did I say? Oh yeah. So as far as like, expectations, dirty fucking word. Anytime you're projecting onto the future about some sort of outcome, you're resisting right now, right? You're not acknowledging what is present, and you are almost setting yourself up to not acknowledge what the present will be or could be, right? But it's interesting because in all the law of attraction kinds of teachings, you are in some way expecting. Ash joined the live. What's up, boo boo?
Ashley, yes, I am cute. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You needed that validation today. He's having a rough day.
Nice.
Anyways, so I'm talking about the projection on the future and expectations, dirty words, dirty stuff. But we all do it. So what I noted was just a practical tool that I'll probably use for myself in asking myself the question, how can I project openness and happiness onto everything I experience today, every day, every moment, everything going forward as some sort of mantra, invitation to myself and starting every day. And I just think that invitation to myself, that way of being as I approach each day could be a helpful practice to not have expectations, to be present.
Thank you, brother. Hey, on a side note, Ash, are you saying you still can't hear me? Because maybe this whole time no one's heard me, which is a gem.
Really? No way. Well, I'll go back and re-listen when we're done. So.
All right, hold on 1 second. Let's see if she pings us back and says, I can't hear you. If she can't, then there's this one button I will hit. And I'll see if that fixes it.
Oh God. Oh, so do you see the microphone button on your screen?
I do see it on my phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
And is that on or off?
Well, I used it off to try to shut everything down for this fucking echo, but maybe I end up turning myself off.
You muted yourself. that
Maybe.
whole time.
Fucking A. Well, at least it's on the Zoom recording. Okay, so I just clicked the microphone. Hey, that's what you get. See,
Have you done
now,
that every time?
no, I have not done that every time. I just did it today.
Still can't hear him.
No, you are, no, hold
No,
on.
now she says
okay.
now I can.
Okay, so my mic for IG has been off.
Wow.
Okay. Well, listen, you got to live and live.
I'm definitely not posting this shit. Bummer
Okay,
for everybody that joined.
yeah, well, they can do they'll get access to the Zoom recording.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's round out this chapter. We're actually going to finish it around an hour, which is just astonishing.
Which is astonishing. You too, girl. I blew her a kiss, not you, home slice, just to let you know.
Whatever, I get to kiss that in a couple seconds as soon as I'm done. You don't.
Okay, fair enough.
Blah, blah, blah.
Well, I have to challenge you on that one.
Hey man, if you come hang out with us, you can kiss her all you want. Whatever.
Sounds good. Whatever.
I don't have any preferences.
Okay, you're just equanimous, my brother.
Equanimous. What does he say? Equanimity. No, he says equanimous.
No.
Yes, he does.
No.
Equanimous.
Listen,
Promise you.
All right, how many Vipassana sits have you done?
Just one, but I was very present.
Okay, fine. I was probably even more present than you, and I did 13 days of Vipassana. So I got you beat. Let's compete and compare. I've done 13. I've done 13.
Well,
I've heard 3 more times he says the word equanimous mind. That big old fat jolly man says equanimous.
I'm gonna find the fucking video on YouTube here real quick. I'm gonna send it and slap it right across your virtual face.
Listen, if you can, I will concede the point. Until then, you're fucking wrong.
I will. Okay, so finishing up chapter 13.
All right.
So just this really nice sentence at the top-ish of 105. It says, unhappiness always has a cause, namely the frustration of our expectations and the subsequent activity of seeking and resisting, whilst happiness is always causeless. What in the world is, oh my God. What is this obedience? I'm over here offering wisdom and you're showing your nips to fucking the world.
Hey, listen, Ash asked, I got to deliver.
Well, she could ask me of plenty of things. I ain't going to deliver because I'm focused.
That's right. That's why I wasn't distracting you until you distracted yourself about me and Ash connecting on my nips. So it just goes to
Ash, total distraction. Get the fuck out of here.
Ash, tell him please, or consider telling him to eat his own fucking food and drink his own medicine because he's trying to project on you his happiness.
That's great. Yeah, so anyways, that line, do you want me to read it again?
Yeah,
unhappiness always has a cause. Unhappiness always has a cause, namely the frustration of our expectations, like we were just talking about, and the subsequent activity of seeking and resisting, whilst happiness is always causeless. It's just a nice differentiation between what is the layer that is creating or diluting us from this underlying layer of happiness that is causeless. It's just there. There's no need to do anything about it. And
here's something, just the prior paragraph I think is important. We've talked about this in Shades of Gray. All psychological or emotional suffering arises on behalf of our resistance, and our resistance is something that arises up within us. And this goes to our earlier part of our conversation. No person or circumstances impose suffering on us. We do it to ourselves. Happiness is what we are. Unhappiness is the activity of seeking and resisting that we do.
Yeah.
And I just think fucking boom.
Yeah, I dig it. Yeah, I don't really have anything to note on that. I mean, yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory. I just want to say the quote at the bottom to finish off, if that's possible.
Yeah, can you add, can I jump in here, just say, could you add the last two paragraphs then? Because I think the one where it says happiness is not, I think,
Yeah, I actually noted that as well.
cool.
So happiness is not something that can be found, acquired, or caused. It can only be uncovered, revealed, and recognized. It is the shining of our own unconditioning being in the midst of experience. We do not need to make an effort to achieve it. Yeah, I mean, so I love the part where it says it is the shining of our own unconditioned being. The thing is that we are conditioned, you know. So I think that's where we have to kind of play with where we are in a dualistic perspective on deconditioning versus a non-dualistic perspective on deconditioning. I think that there's some people that are wrapped up in past and future experiences that we have to. This is my story because I'm obviously projecting onto people. I'm still stuck there to some extent. Yeah, that's it. And then the last paragraph. On the contrary, it is the effort of seeking and resisting that veils it. It is for this reason that the sage Ashtavakra said, happiness belongs to that supremely lazy person for whom even blinking is too much trouble. I think that's one that could challenge our culture right now, big time. Right?
In what way?
The fact that our culture, of course, I'm projecting onto our culture, is so ambitious to get places, acquire things, that it's very active, very, very active. Even our desire to grow as people interested in self-development or whatever, spirituality, it's too much. And I've said this before, we're just doing too much.
Got it.
Cool. We've certainly done too much for this Sunday. I'm going to go lay by the pool now. What about you?
I might go lay by the pool, actually, matter of fact, maybe this
Cool.
afternoon. It's supposed to get pretty warm here today, around 90. So
Wow, that's rough. It's only 100 degrees here now. I'm just, I mean, actually, just look at my body. Can you see the puddles of sweat?
no, I don't.
I just wanted to show you my abs. No, I'm like literally dripping sweat, which makes sense because I'm wearing a beanie. So chapter 13 is done. Next week, we're going to wrap around to chapter 14 again. Thanks for joining me and dancing with me, brother.
Hugs and kisses, brother.
All right, we'll figure out that mic next week.
I think so.
Bye.
But